What's going on, guys? So we are back here at the fifth wheel for part 2 of the 2-part series of installing the new switch panel on board. Right here I have the new switch panel. Stains all dry, everything looks really good, and it's going to match pretty close to the interior color of the RV, I hope. I haven't actually brought it out here yet to compare it, but hopefully it's going to be a pretty good match. As long as it looks good and it looks a lot better than what's in there, I'll be happy, especially considering the fact I have a new switch, everything matches, it's really nice and clean, and it should go on relatively easy. Now, if you look at the back, you can definitely see that there are a lot of wires. So there's going to be a lot of wires to have to route back through there to make sure everything's connected. I hope I have enough length on the existing wires to reach, and I might have to shorten some of these or even change some of these crimps out, depending on what I have going on. I might just unplug the back of the connectors that are in there and plug them into the back of these switches. But once I get inside of the RV and I'm able to look at the panel, it'll give me a much better idea of what the plan is. So hang tight, let's kick this thing off. Alright, so I'm going to have to disconnect power to the RV completely to do this work, simply because I'll be dealing with wires that are always exposed to power if I don't. So give me a chance to use my DeWalt work light that I've had for a little while now. I absolutely love this thing. Completely wireless. Throw a battery down here at the base of it, right there, and it will illuminate a huge area, which will come in really handy for this project, especially since I'll be recording it. Alright, so the first thing I did was I disconnected all power from the RV. So I have it disconnected from the pedestal, and I have the main power kill switch turned off, so there's no power going to any of these switches right now. So the next thing I need to do is remove this panel. So if you ever wondered how many wires are back behind a typical control panel with 4 slides, that's what I'm looking at. It's a lot of wiring back here. And most of this is 12-volt wiring, so there's very little 110 power running back here. I don't actually know if there's any 110 power running back here, but all of this should just plug and play directly over to the back of the new board, and I might not need to actually change any of the crimps out. So that's what I'm hoping for. Otherwise, I'm going to be doing a lot of splicing here to get these wires changed out, and that's what I'm not hoping for. So after taking a look at it and seeing that all the wires back here are actually in really good shape, I think what I'm going to end up doing is simply moving the connectors over to the same spot on the new board. So basically take one connector off here at a time and plug it into the back of this board. It's a lot of wires and it might take a little while, but that's probably going to be the easiest way versus having to cut all the connections and reconnect them. Let me see what's going on back here. I might be able to... One thing I like about how they've set this up is they gave me plenty of slack, so it's not as if there's a shortage of wire back here. You see electrical tape on some of these and you're wondering why. That's what I put on the back of the switch when I replaced it. None of the other ones have it. I don't necessarily think it's needed so long as the wire doesn't come loose, but I just put it there originally. Okay, so I got all of the big wires moved over. It was very simple. Only took about 10 minutes to move all of them over. And again, they gave you plenty of slack, so you really don't have to worry about how much slack you're going to have to work with. I've seen some where the wire just barely gets to the back of the control panel. Now you may be wondering why I have all of this 3M adhesive back here. And the reason why I put that back here is because if I for some reason have an issue mounting this to the wall itself, it's going to give me a few areas that I can kind of peel the tape back and adhere it so it doesn't come off. Because the factory panel screwed in right around the edge here, and I don't have those screw holes to work with anymore since this panel is so much larger. So that's why I put it here. I wouldn't peel all of it back because I need to take this off if I need to service it, but this gives me the option of cutting back smaller parts of it and just having a smaller area stick to this wall if for some reason I have to service this panel again. Okay, so we have all the wires wired up now. Now I'm going to be honest with you, it was a real pain to get some of the smaller wires moved over, because some of the wires that were there were already traced back to wires that would go to this plug on the other board, and then would go to a wire that was already connected. So I had to do a lot of cutting, and I had to kind of reroute some of the wires for these smaller switches, which pretty much control the water heater and the electric pump. Now, these wires, I imagine, are primarily for the lights, the little LED lights that come on whenever you turn a switch on, but it was still kind of a pain to route. These two wires also weren't used, and I'm going to cap these off with some splices, but I don't really understand what these go to. They probably go to some other sensors that you can monitor with your tank level switches. But aside from that, everything seems to be in really good shape. Everything's wired. We already tested it all, and all the slides open and close. Everything turns on and off the way it should. It's just mounting it on the wall and seeing how it looks when we're done. And if you missed the first episode and why I'm doing this, it's because there was so much tension on the back of these switches right here that it caused one of the actual switches to crack in half and fail. And I'll show you what it looks like whenever I get this put in. So the reason for that is because the back wall is just right behind these wires here, and they have to make a pretty sharp turn to go up the wall or down the wall like they're supposed to. And it puts a lot of tension on the back of these switches. That's the reason why I built this, to come off the wall 3/4 of an inch and give me the ability to relieve some of that tension off the back of these switches. I know it's not going to be a lot, but it's definitely going to be enough to help. And now that I've identified it, I can also route the wires in a way that would probably avoid that happening again. Okay, so I did things a little bit different. Instead of using these two holes that I had made to screw in, I simply used the backer that was already there. Now, I don't really like the way that looks, and I'll probably put caps over these, but what I did was, there's a small 1x1 bracket that goes around the hole. I drilled some holes in the side here, and I simply put some screws so they're underneath this panel, and then this panel is screwed into the top portion of this wood. Looks really good, and of course, I lost one of these screws. I have no idea where it went. I'm looking everywhere, and I just can't find it. I have no idea where that one little screw went. I have some more at the house, so I'll bring them next time I'm out here to put that one screw in. Aside from that though, I think the panel looks really, really good. It's about the best I could do matching it to that door. It definitely blends in a lot better than that other piece of wood I had in here. And I think it's really gonna function well because it kind of dresses up this area. It conceals the panel into wood, which I think looks better, and everything works. So we'll test it real quick. You can hear that slide functioning properly. Buttons are working well. That is the front bedroom slide. It's working good. That's the kitchen slide. I can hear it. This is the bedroom slide right here. That one works well. The awning. That one works well. Turn on the electric water heater. Gas water heater. You can hear it clicking. This is the water pump. Heard that kick on. Scare light up front. Porch light. And these are all my tanks. A freshwater tank. Battery is full. Black water 1, black water 2. Everything's working well. I think it looks really good. It turned out better than I actually thought it would. I think it dresses up this area, which I really think they should have done in the first place, but I like it. I think that it stands out well. I trimmed it off. I used a router to make the edge look a little bit nicer. It blends in, and I'm pretty happy with the results. Anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video series. If you didn't watch the first video on kind of how I made this, and let me real quickly say that I took the other one. I didn't like it when it stained because it left a line where the two boards that I had kind of adhered together were, and I didn't like that. So I went ahead and remade it out of one solid piece of wood, and I used a jigsaw to cut the hole out instead of my circular saw or my miter saw that I used last time. And it turned out really, really nice. So I'm happy with the results. If this is something you want to do, hopefully the video series is going to give you enough information on doing it. It's definitely a little bit tedious swapping all your wires over. These were easy. This is where the difficulty was, mainly because I needed to wire one wire essentially to everything back here, so you couldn't really just swap it over, and then I had to disconnect it from the little plug that goes into the side of the control box for these lights. But Again, the whole job probably took about an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours to complete, and I think it looks good. Anyways, guys, if you haven't had a chance, please take a moment, subscribe to my channel, give me a thumbs up. We'll talk to you again very soon.